Hi everyone, my name is Mahima Saran, and today I'm going to present a topic building cloud native applications via microservices. So, let me give you a little bit background about myself, a quick introduction. So, I have around 15 to 16 years of experience in building cloud native applications, and so I started my journey basically as a developer, where I have developed a couple of Java applications. So my most of my experience has been around building software development or applications, and then my specialization came into the picture and I started working on microservices. So in my past organization, I was an advocate on how to build microservices or how to refactor monolith applications to microservices. So today I will be talking more about what are microservices and what are the various strategies you can use uh, in order to refactor or re-platform your monolith application into microservices. But before we begin, there are a couple of announcements which I would like to make. One is the Q&A. So you can see there is a Q&A option there. So I please feel free to drop any questions that you have in the Q&A option, and I would be glad to answer them at the end of the session. Second is a poll. So we have created a poll at the end of the session again. You can rate my presentation so that it will help me continuously to improve my presentations and help me improve any future presentations or sessions that I do. And the third one is a contest. So we have a very exciting, very easy contest where you have to answer a couple of questions. If you answer the questions correctly, you can be part of the leaderboard and you can get some prizes and goodies. So please answer some of the contest questions that we have, and just take goodies away with you. All right, so let's begin the session for today. This is the agenda that we are going to cover. One is where we'll talk a little bit about the traditional monolith applications, the issues and challenges that we face with them. Then we'll talk about our journey of cloud native applications. That how do we start our journey? Where do we start? What are the key patterns and practices you should follow? Then we'll talk about key characteristics of microservices, and then some of the references. So let's begin our session today. So traditional monolith applications, you must have all worked on your traditional applications, which are, a single code base application working on running on your on-premise servers or on a private cloud, let's say, which are very tightly coupled with each other. By tightly coupled, I mean that your entire code base, one module interacts with the other module directly. They are not very modularized in nature. You have a centralized database, you have a central code where if you have to scale your application, all you have to do is you have to create a replica of your application, right? It is not possible for you to individually scale your application. So let's take an example, like you have an e-commerce application and there is a huge demand that you have to increase your inventory service, right? Your inventory service is facing a lot of load and you want to scale up your inventory service, but because it's a monolith application, it is not possible for you to individually scale only your inventory service. What you have to do is you have to create one more replica of your application, run it on a server, and then put a load balancer. So the load balancer will be responsible for dividing the traffic between the two replicas. So there is no way for individual scaling that you can do. Most of the database that are used are traditional databases, like your MySQL database or your Oracle database. So I'm not saying that RDBMS databases has issues, but the problem is that they are pretty much centralized in nature. By centralized, I means if you are updating one table schema, it could impact the other modules. So let's say there is a table for accounts for your users. If you're updating that table, because you have a centralized code base and modules are interacting with each other, you doesn't know that this change, very small change that you're doing in your application or in your database, it could have repercussions and it could impact your entire application, right? So even a small change or an enhancement that you are making in your application, it can impact your entire code base, and you might have to do very rigorous testing over there. These were some of the challenges that I'm talking about. But if you look at monolith applications, it has its own benefits as well. One of the benefit is because the code is not distributed, you don't have to manage so many servers or clusters, right? You have a single application, which is where the modules are interacting with each other. So the code base is very simple. Then it is deployed on a single server, so you don't have to worry about interaction between various services, or how to manage so many services which are running at different clusters. So in a way, monolith application has its own benefits as well as challenges, but you have to be very cautious when you are deciding whether you want to go with monolith applications or microservices based applications. The reason I'm talking about this is I have worked with so many customers in the past, and they just want to follow the trend that they want to modularize or refactor their application and make it a cloud native application. Sometimes I've seen that the applications were very simple in nature. By simple means, the code base was very small. It was a small application which was working absolutely fine, or it has a modular code, right? So in that way, there were a couple of times when we had to advocate to the customers that microservices based architecture is not appropriate for this kind of architecture, because it will make your application more complex. It is not having as much problems that you want to move it to a microservices based architecture. So whenever you are deciding, or if your customers are planning to move their application to microservices based architecture, please analyze your application, see the current code base, list down the current problems that your application is having. Okay, based on that, you have to take a decision whether it is appropriate to move this particular monolith application to microservices or not. Is moving your application to microservices will make it more complex, and instead of reducing your problems, is it going to increase your problems? So these are some of the notes that I'm giving you, that you should always be very cautious before even deciding to move your application to microservices. Now, let's talk about why there is a need to convert a full-fledged monolith application, right? Do we have any pain points? I mean, how do we actually convert your monolith application into a cloud native application? Okay, so deciding whether you should be converting your application to microservices or not. So here are some of the questions that you need to ask when you are trying to refactor or replatform your monolith application to microservices. Are you having proper CI/CD in place? Do you face any difficulties with your CI/CD? Is everything automated in your application? Do you require too much of manual work in order to deploy your application? Or every time you have to make an enhancement in your application, it take months to reach out to the market, so the time to market is very, very high for you? Does your application code is very old, and it is complex, and if a new team member is joining your team, does he is would he be able to understand your code very easily, or it would take almost a month for him to understand? So do you have a very steep learning curve over there? What other challenges you are facing in terms of scaling? If suppose your application is facing a lot of load, let's say you are running a sale or you have a spike during your month end periods, do you really face challenges to scale up your application, or your application is self sufficient to handle that much load, right? So if you have to make a small change, how much time does it really take to bring that change, implement that change, and then release it into your production environment? So these are some of the issues which we commonly see with monolith applications. And if you see your monolith application is facing these challenges, then it is a right time that you should migrate your application to microservices based architecture. So I'm not going to talk too much about microservices architecture, because I believe that microservices architecture is basically an architecture design where you break a big monolith application into small independent services. Now, these small independent services are the services which are self-dependent. By self-dependent, I mean they would have their own CI/CD pipeline. They are going to have their own infrastructure where they would be deployed. Most of the time, your microservices are going to have their own individual databases as well. So in a way, microservices is just an architecture pattern or a design in which you split your application in the form of small independent applications which interact with each other, right? So I'm not going too much in detail about discussing what is microservices and what are the benefits of microservices, but let's talk more about that. If you have a monolith application, how would you go about it? I mean, what is the approach that you are going to follow in order to break it in such a way gradually that you are able to implement a microservices based architecture? So how do you start your journey? So these are the 6 approaches at a high level which AWS advocates. One is rehost, replatform, repurchase, refactor, retire, and retain, right? So rehost means you are just doing a lift and shift of your application. Your my monolith based application is running in your on-premise servers, and you just want to migrate them to some cloud like an AWS cloud. So we are not going to discuss because it does not have a great impact on your application. It is not going to solve the issues that you face with your monolith applications. Repurchase is again a strategy where you are migrating from one service to the other. Let's say you were using a MySQL database, now you want to use a self-managed RDBMS database like RDS, self-managed RDS service of AWS. So again, we are not going to discuss about repurchase. Then retire is, let's say you have already migrated your application to a certain service and you are retiring your old application. Then last, retain is something where you are doing nothing. Your application, your monolith application is running as is. You're not making any changes to it. So for the sake of this session, I'm going to only focus on two things. One is replatform and another one is refactor. So replatform basically means that you analyze your application, you determine what changes are required, and then you move your application from your on-premise to infrastructure with certain changes. And these changes are not going to solve all your problems, but in a way, some of your infrastructure related problems could be resolved. The other strategy is refactor, which is a long term. So replatform is a strategy which is short term in nature, right? You are just so let's say that you have an application where you are using a self-managed database. Now, instead of using your self-managed database, you want to go with RDBM, say, managed RDBMS database like a RDS, okay? Or you have your whole bunch of uh, cloud monitoring or centralized monitoring and logging enabled. You have implemented your own EKS system, but it is becoming difficult for you to manage that. So instead of using your self-managed ELK stack or logging and monitoring, you go with a CloudWatch kind of a service which will manage all your logging and monitoring needs. So that is what replatforming means. Now, at the same time, refactor means it's a long term goal that you are modifying your infrastructure and at the same time you are redesigning your application. By redesigning means you will apply the patterns, you are going to make changes to your code, you are going to have some testing done to your application, and then you are going to deploy the new version of your application, right? So this is what it means at a high level with replatforming and refactoring. So now let's take a look in detail that how we are going to go about it. Where do we start with replatforming and then refactoring? So here is how our journey starts. Um, so when we start with a replatforming, the very first step that you have to do is you analyze your application in detail, right? Identify the various components in your application, like what are the services that you have, what is the core functionality that you have, what is the security requirement of your application, what kind of database you are using. Do you need an RDBMS kind of a database, or do you need a document kind of a database or a graph database, right? What is the visualization services that you are using? What is the storage need? What is the size of your database currently? What kind of scalability you need? And how your traffic spikes are during a daytime or within a month's time? What kind of APIs you are using currently? What is the compute requirement for your application, right? So all these are the questions that you are going to get answered as part of your identify components, right? So first is you identify what all components are there in your application, then you outline the requirements, that what is the exact requirement for your application. And the third step is going to be mapping to the AWS resources. So let's say you decide that your existing application was using an RDBMS database, and now you want to go with a document based database like a DynamoDB, which uses uh, or or any other databases. So in that way, you are actually mapping your requirements to the AWS resources that we are going to use. So let's say for compute, you want to go with ECS, right? Or you want to implement Docker based applications, or you want to build your application around Kubernetes as an orchestration framework. So for storage, are you going to use an NFS based system, or you can use S3 based system? So these are the decisions that you are going to take as part of your replatforming. Now, once you have made these decisions, you can go about it. Then this is the whole portfolio of AWS services which are available specifically for microservices based architecture. So one is like in terms of if you have to make your application serverless, deployed in the form of Docker containers, these are the services that you can use. If you want to implement application integration, then you can go with an API gateway as a single entry point to your system. If you want to use cloud code automation like code deployment, you want to automate the deployment of your code, you want to automate infrastructure as a code, so you can go and use AWS cloud formation scripts. If you want to have logging and monitoring enabled, you can enable Amazon CloudWatch for that, right? Same way for security and administration, you can use AWS IAM services. Then you can use AWS CloudTrail in order to have more control over your environment. So these are the various services which of portfolio of services which are available. But of course, AWS has much more services than this. But the ones that I am highlighting here are specifically the ones which will be more useful in terms of more microservices based architecture. So this is one of the very small design if you want to go with a container based approach. Let's say you have a monolith application, you want to migrate your application to Docker containers using Amazon ECS service. So this is a kind of small architecture that you can use, where you could have Amazon CloudFront, and you can use Amazon S3 buckets for storing your files or storing your data. Then you can have one of the load balancers, application load balancers. You can deploy your code in the form of Docker containers using Amazon ECS service. So Amazon ECS service again at the backend uses Amazon EC2 servers only, but it is an orchestration framework which helps you to orchestrate and help you with the communication and management of all your Docker containers. And the same way you can go with Aurora serverless service, or you can go with a DynamoDB kind of a database. So this is a very common high level architecture for containers if you want to prepare. This was about replatforming. Now let's take a look in detail at if suppose you want to refactor. So once you have done the replatforming, now you want to refactor your application, right? Or let's say your application is so much tightly coupled that you cannot go with Docker based architecture, but you definitely want to move your application to a Docker based architecture so that you can have all those benefits that you get out of a container based application to meet your market demands, to be able to release your applications quickly. So for all those benefits, you decide that you want to go with refactoring your application. But how do you refactor a scary monolith application, because it has grown over the years such humongous in size that it has such a complex architecture, all the modules are intertwined with each other. So how do you go about it? Now one thing which is a key to today's world is every application or customer, they want that their application should not be having any downtime, right? Their application should still be running, and while we are making the changes, so that it does not impact the end users, their application, their business should not be impacted while we are making any kind of changes in the code or releasing any new changes in the market. So how do we achieve that? So the best approach is to do it incrementally, right? To do it in a such a step by step manner, and while we are implementing and making the changes, and at the same time incrementally we are releasing new features into the market. So that is the best approach that we can follow. There are certain key patterns which have been listed by Martin Flower, which are standard in the market whenever you want to do an incremental approach and refactor your monolith application to microservices. So today I'm going to talk about three key patterns that we have. One is branch by abstraction, then the strangulation pattern, and the feature toggle pattern. After that, I'm also going to talk about one case study so you would understand that what are the baby steps that you are going to do in order to migrate one particular component or service to a microservices based architecture without having any downtime, without impacting your application altogether. So let's take a look at it. So what are the key patterns? So let's talk about first one, which is branch by abstraction pattern. Okay, branch by abstraction pattern is a pattern which, or a technique which makes a very small changes to your system in such a gradual way that it has minimal impact to your system. That means while you are making your changes, while you are still making your changes, you are updating your code, you are able to release one or two features into the market when the feature is still not in a complete state, so that for the end user, it will not be visible. The changes that you are doing internally to your backend system, those changes are never going to be visible to your end user. But those incremental changes would be done in such a way which will build on one top of the other, that you would be able to test your application in your production environment and at the same time release new features as well. So this is a very good pattern which helps you to incrementally release new changes into your application in your production environment. So how does it work? Let's take a look. So first thing is, let's say you have a very huge application. You have to first identify one of the component or one of the services which has less dependency on the other modules. Okay, so you identify one of the modules which has less dependency, right, which has more impact. So less dependency on the other modules, and at the same time, it is a very critical component and which is going to make a lot of difference and into your application if you improve the performance of it. So this is the first thing. You first identify the core component which has a problem, right? And which you want to replace to a microservices based architecture, which has the least dependency on other modules. Once you have identified that this is your code and this is your flawed supplier, the second step that you are going to do is we are going to introduce an abstraction layer. So we are going to make certain code changes in your so let's say this is your service code. We are going client code, sorry. You are going to make certain changes so that when this client is calling this code or this service, instead of calling the service directly, it is going to have an abstraction layer in between. So this client code is going to call the abstraction layer first. An abstraction layer inherently is going to communicate with your flawed supplier. So in this way, you are going to update all your client code, which was currently calling your flawed supplier. So in a way, they all are now going to interact via this abstraction layer instead of uh, interacting with it directly. Now the third step is removing the implementation. So what we are doing is, um, what we are doing here is, now because we have an abstraction layer, what we do is parallelly we can start developing a microservice for this flawed supplier. Let's say you have an inventory service. You have certain components of the inventory service which gives you a lot of performance issues, and inventory service has very less dependency on other services. So you identify the inventory service, you identify the various controllers or APIs which are calling your inventory service. You make changes in the code in such a way that every API which is making a call to your inventory service should first call the abstraction layer. Abstraction layer could be your interfaces, let's say. Okay, so you create an interface for your service. So all the components which are going to call your service directly would first call your interface first or your controller first, and then parallelly we start developing a microservice, and that microservice abstraction layer would then replace the old component with your microservice, new microservice architecture that you have created. Okay, you'll get to understand in more detail when I'll talk about one of the use cases. Second one is the strangler pattern. What is strangle pattern? If you have looked at a tree, uh, I mean, it could be strangled by some other tree which is growing on top of it. So this is something which signifies a strangle pattern. So what does it really means is we have an application. So in the first phase, you can see that you have a client, you have a monolith application, and you have a database. So what we are going to do is incrementally, we are going to start the development of a new microservice, okay, with similar functionality with improved code, which has its own database. And we are going to introduce a proxy here, right? A proxy server. And what is the role of this proxy server? That you will deploy your microservice as a parallel service to your original monolith application for that specific functionality. Now this proxy service would gradually start sending some traffic to your monolith microservice architecture instead of sending it to the monolith application. So let's say you have created an inventory service as a microservice. So whenever a request will come for the inventory service, proxy would start sending incremental traffic. So first it will send 2% of the traffic, then it will send 5% of the traffic if the traffic is successful. Then it is going to send 10%, 20%. So in a way, what is happening here is we are reducing the traffic which was sent to your original monolith application, and we are sending more and more traffic to the microservices architecture. In a way, there would come a scenario where incrementally you have created one microservice for each of your monolith components, and your proxy has started sending traffic more and more to the microservices architect services rather than to your original monolith application. So what you're doing is you're strangulating your monolith. So it there comes a scenario where all the requests are actually going to your microservices rather than going to the monolith application, and that is a time where you can release or retire on monolith application. The third is the feature toggle pattern. Feature toggle pattern again is a toggle pattern. So you must have seen that this is one of the flags which are usually available on your UI screens also, and it is also available as part of the coding. So in this image also you can see feature toggle pattern means you are just toggling between the features. So let's say there is a new feature or a service, microservice that you have launched, right? But you do not want your traffic for that specific microservice to be routed for all the users. Let's say you want to route specific user traffic only to the microservice, and rest of the traffic should still be going to your monolith application. So you can implement it very easily. You can implement this toggle feature pattern, okay? And then the toggle is enabled. The administrator can enable a toggle. When the toggle is enabled, you can add a condition that for this list of users, let's say for specific user IDs or users from a specific geography or region, should be diverted to a particular microservice. Rest all the traffic should still be going to the original monolith application. So in this way, you can test your application in the production environment for a specific set of users. And if you see that your service is not behaving as per the expected behavior, you can switch off the toggle at any point of time, right? So it becomes very easy to switch between one feature to the other using this toggle pattern. Or other way around could be, let's say you are introducing a new feature. You have created a page, right, in your application, on your web application, and you want to implement a new feature called rating, which was not earlier there. Now you want to test how your rating feature works, but you don't want to enable this rating feature for all your users. You want to enable it only for a certain set of users. So you can add a toggle which will be visible only to the administrators. They can enable toggle for a certain set of users, and you can test how your functionality or your new feature is working. So this is again one of the very good patterns if you have to incrementally do some testing or release a new feature into the market. So this was all about the key three patterns, which mainly points at how you can do incremental changes to your application so that you have least impact on your running monolith application. Okay, so for this session, let's do a case study. Okay, for the case study, I'm taking a pet clinic app. Pet Clinic is an open source Spring Boot based application which is available on GitHub. The code is available and the running version of the application is also available. So please feel free to go and check the code or see how the service is. So it has both the versions. This pet clinic app has a monolith version as well as microservices version. So it's a very good case study to understand how you can split your monolith in terms of coding and how you can develop your microservices. So let's take a look. Okay. So this is the as is architecture of the pet clinic application. Okay. So what it has is it has a vet controller, it has a visit controller, right? It has mainly four components. One is the vet, then the visit, pet, and the owner. Okay. And there is a common service called clinic service. This clinic service basically diverts. So it vet controller will call the clinic service. All these controllers are first going to call the clinic service, and clinic service are going to direct it to the individual repositories, right? And these repositories collect data from the database and return back the response. So this is how the architecture is. Now, for example, how to choose. So I choose one of the services. I want to incrementally change from monolith to microservices. So let's say I choose visit controller, because visit service is the service which is independent of most of the other services. So how do I go about it? I create a visit microservice in parallel. Okay, I create a visit repository, and instead of using the RDBMS database, I'm actually using a monolith database here. Oh, sorry, a MongoDB database here. So what is the next step that I'm going to do? The first step that I'm going to do is I'm first going to identify the service which needs to be migrated to microservices, which I have already done. I have analyzed my legacy application. I have identified the key platform changes that I want to do. Let's say from RDBMS, I want to go with a MongoDB based database. I want to deploy this application in the form of a ECS, right, in the containerized platform. So these are some of the platform considerations that I've already done. Next is I want to refactor it in a gradual way. So I've identified visit service, which I want to refactor first. So now I'm going to apply all the three patterns that we explained. Okay, so how we are going to go? This is the first step, which is already completed. Now the second step is by applying the branch by abstraction pattern. So if you remember, branch by abstraction pattern was where we introduce a new interface or a branch or a abstraction layer in between your front end and your backend code, correct? So what I'm going to do here is, this is my front end and this is my clinic service, which has its own RDBMS database. In between, I'm going to introduce an abstraction layer called visit. So any request which comes for visit, okay, specifically for visit, would first be directed to visit abstraction layer, and then clinic service is going to call the visit abstraction layer. Now the third step that I'm going to do is, parallelly I start developing a clinic microservice. So here what I'm applying is a triangular pattern, correct? So I have applied a clinic service. I have developed my own visit microservice, and it is still in development. Now this visit microservice is having its own MongoDB database, right? So visit abstraction is calling visit microservice, which is internally calling its own database. But it is under development right now, right? So I have not still deployed the service. I've just made all the connections in place. Now when I want to deploy the service, I'm going to apply the feature toggle pattern. Okay, the third pattern that we talked about. Now what this feature toggle pattern is going to do is, I have enabled a toggle here, right? And I have enabled it as part of my controller, that any data which is coming for a list of users, let's say from user ID 1 to 100, all those requests has to go to the abstraction layer, and that abstraction layer, instead of calling the original clinic service, it is start calling my visit microservice gradually. By gradually I means it will not start adding the traffic altogether. It is going to gradually increase that traffic. Let's say it sends the traffic 1%, then it increases to 10%, then 20%. Then there would come a stage where no more traffic for visit would go to the original clinic service. It will start going to my visit microservice, correct? At the same time, what I'm also doing is, I'm syncing these two databases for visit service. so that if any changes are being done in the clinic service for visit, should be replicated in my MongoDB database as well. Okay. What is the next step? Next step is a final step. You have tested your application, which is not full-fledged application. It could be having some features which you still want to develop, but it is in a stage where it is capable of handling most of your traffic. You have released it into your production environment, right? So now it is a time that your visit microservice is capable of handling 100% of the traffic for visit APIs. So you remove the toggle pattern, you remove your uh, service for clinic service. I mean, I'm not saying you will remove the complete clinic service, but you will remove the code which was mainly handling all the visit APIs. So all the traffic related to your visit API would be directed to your visit microservice, which will be taken care by your database, right? So at some point, when you realize that because your visit service is completely capable of handling all the traffic and your database MongoDB is completely in sync with your clinic service, you can stop this sync of the database as well. But again, it is a decision that you have to take on the basis of what functions, what tables you have migrated. If you still have some tables which are related to visit service, which are getting updated by a clinic service, you can still keep the databases in sync until you realize that there is no more need to sync the two databases, right? So this is the whole pattern, like all the three patterns that you are going to apply incrementally, where you can release incrementally just one single service here. In a similar way, one by one, you can target other services, start their development parallelly, introduce an abstraction layer, and then introduce a feature toggle pattern. Start diverting your traffic gradually to the new service while syncing the databases. Once the database sync is done, once the service is capable of handling 100% of the traffic, you can remove the service completely from your old code in your monolith application, and your microservice, while still developing new features, is actually released into the market and being used by your end users. So the beauty of these pattern is there was no downtime, right? End users did not even notice that there was any change in the application. For them, the application is as is. But at the back end, you have fully converted one service from monolith to microservices. Let's take a look at some of the key characteristics of microservices that you should follow in order to move from monolith to microservices. So one of the key characteristics is continuous everything. That means everything should be continuous. When you develop your microservices, it is never complete. You develop it in the form of a product. By that I mean that when you develop a product, it is never complete, right? Incrementally, you're always enhancing your product, you're always adding features to it. At the same time, you're fixing some of the bugs. So your application development in the form of microservices should always be incremental in nature. You should avoid having any waterfall models. The best approach to developing your microservices is using agile methodology. And everything should be continuous in nature. That means every day you should be able to commit your code, and every day you should be really able to release new features into the market without doing too much of rigorous testing. If your service fails in the production environment, you can quickly roll back without having impact on your original application. So this is what it talks about: continuous everything. Everything is code. That means everything should be tested and monitored and commit frequently. So when we talk about microservices, it is not about a technology. It is not about the processes or only the patterns. When we talk about microservices, is a whole change in your architecture. It is a change in the culture, the way we have been developing our applications, right? So it just does not talk about a particular framework. It does not talk about a technology. It does not talk about the teams. So when you're designing your team should be cross-functional in nature, right? Every team should be capable of doing the development, the testing, and the deployment of your application. Everything should be automated in nature. By automated means, let's say you have a big monolith application and you have divided your big monolith application into hundreds of microservices. So it is not viable for anyone to uh, monitor these services or to debug these services at any point of time, right? Manual deployment, manual debugging, manual testing, it will become too cumbersome for your team to do that. So the best approach is when you automate everything, right? From your testing to your deployment to your versioning, and till the time when you are actually making few changes or roll back to your application. If you have to roll back your application, it should also be automated. If you want to provision a new server, you should implement infrastructure as a code. So you don't have to scale out or scale in manually. The system should be able to identify when there is a need to scale up your application and when there is a need to scale out your application. So you can identify those strategies, you can implement those strategies very easily using any cloud platforms. Like in AWS, you have auto scaling groups. You can, or if you're using EKS or ECS, you can enable what is a trigger point at which your application should be scaled out, at what point your application should be scaled. So there are various automations which you can implement using various components or services available as part of AWS. By continuous everything means everything is tested fully. When you are deploying anything to your production environment, as soon as you check in your code, right? If you check in your code to a Git repository, let's say, after that, analyzing your application, testing your application, okay, and then creating a Docker image, then deploying a Docker image. So right from deployment to your development to your staging environment to deploying to your production environment, all of this should be automated using your various CI/CD pipelines. So whenever you talk about microservices, you cannot get away with DevOps. DevOps is the key to every microservices architecture. So if you are developing microservices, you cannot do it without a good DevOps architecture in place. So everything should be automated right from your infrastructure to your testing to your deployment. This is what it talks about. Then everything is code that is tested and monitored. By that, even if you have to provision a new infrastructure, that is also should be written in the form of code. So at any point of time, you can make changes to it. When you're writing your testing scripts, do not write your testing scripts manually where a tester has to sit down and do the testing of each and every feature. Right from your component testing, unit testing to your functional testing, or everything should be automated. So everything, when you want to make it automated, you have to write it in the form of code, which is built and committed and tested, right? Everything should be highly monitored. So let's say in a microservices architecture, when you split your application into multiple services, these services are going to talk to each other. So if you make one request, to complete that request, it could happen that that request will traverse between three services in order to complete it. So when you're completing that particular request, all you have to do is you have to you have to split it in such a way that uh, uh, sorry, that if there is any change or if there is any failure, let's say service B is unable to communicate with service C because service C was down. So your application should have so much detailed logging and monitoring in place that you can capture any failure at a centralized logging and monitoring, and you should be able to trace back that when and where your service failed or your request failed. Commit frequently. So your application should use agile methodology, and in that way, every time you are making a new change, you should not take too much time to do rigorous testing on top of it. You should be building your system in such a way that you should be able to commit smaller changes and release those smaller changes very frequently into the market. Here we come to the end of the session. Okay, sorry, I've exceeded some time, so that's the reason. These are some of the references that I have taken while building the session. You can go and take a look at all these references. Um, so the session is over. This is the content that I wanted to complete for the session. So we can start with the Q&A. So I'll just check uh, what all Q&A questions have been asked. Okay, I'm just reading out the questions loudly here. For every service that you create in the microservices architecture, how do you determine which purpose built databases to be used? Okay, this is the first question. The second question is, what if two services needs access to the same database? That is, they need to share the databases. What are different ways in which services interact with each other? So there are three questions. I would like to answer them one by one. One is for key services that you create in Microsoft, how do you determine which purpose built database to use? So there are two ways in which there are certain ways in which you determine. First thing is, do you, first thing is how complicated is your database? What is the nature of your application? Let's say you are using a banking application. Okay, in a banking application you usually have your transactions in such a way that if any of your transaction fails in between, you have to roll back the complete transaction, right? So, and from the security point of view also, so if we have seen most of the time that RDBMS databases provides more security, they provides you with a very better search view. So let's say you have a lot of need that in your application you should be able to create views, you should be able to have certain reports that you can develop very easily out of the whole databases. So these are some of the points where people decide whether they want to go with an RDBMS database or they want to go with a document DB kind of a database like MongoDB. Or so these are some of the criteria. First, you have to identify the nature of those transactions. Okay, can those transactions be handled individually, or that these transactions need to be interlinked to each other in the form of an RDBMS database? But just to give you one more thing, that in today's world, there are many banking applications which are still having asset transactions, but they have still developed their microservices architecture using document DB databases. So it is pretty much possible even if you have asset transactions, but these are some of the decisions that has to be taken on the basis of what are the needs of your application. Second question is, what if two services needs access to the same database? Okay, when two services, let's say you have an inventory service and you have a order service. Now inventory service and order service needs to interact with each other and they want to share the databases. So in microservices architecture, databases are not shared. In fact, what happens is when inventory service needs when order service needs some data from the inventory service, it is going to call the API of the inventory service. Inventory service is going to retrieve that data from its database and return back the response. So in a way, what is happening is both the services, whenever they need data from each other, they are going to call the APIs of each other rather than directly making a call to the database. So in that way, they are not sharing the database. Both of them have their individual databases and tables, but they interact with each other and they pass on the data between each other using the API calls. The third question is, what are different ways in which services interact with each other? So there are two kind of mechanisms which are there when the services want to interact, which is synchronous and asynchronous communication. Synchronous communication is like your RESTful APIs. The one service calls the other service directly using calling their RESTful APIs or SOAP-based APIs. The other one is asynchronous mechanism. Asynchronous mechanism means you have implemented a queue, let's say a Rabbit queue or a Kafka queue or uh, uh, active queue, right? So these are many queues which are available in the market. So in a way, asynchronous mechanism happens is one service, whenever it requests some data from the other service, it is going to send that request to a queue, and the other service which is in a listening mode would be able to pick up that request from the queue and then provide a response back to the queue. So this is the asynchronous mechanism. The other question that I can see is what functionality is implemented in the abstraction layer. So abstraction layer is basically kind of an interface. Okay, it does not have any code of in itself. What an interface does is, if you have implemented Java based interfaces, let's say, the feature or the core functionality of an interface is that controller is going to call the interface of a service. An interface will decide that based on the request parameters, what is the appropriate method that it needs to call for the particular service. So this is all your abstraction layer is going to do. Abstraction layer is basically going to be implemented in the form of an interface which whose whole functionality is just going to divert the traffic based on the request to a certain service, whether it's a monolith application or to a microservice architect application. Then there is another question. This microservice application will impact on our performance as it has multiple containers. So not exactly it is going to impact the performance, because it totally depends on the way you are designing your application. Most of the time microservices are designed using DDD, that is domain driven designing. You design your domains in such a way that there is minimal interaction between the two domains. Okay, so a set of applications or services should be restricted to their bounded context or to their domains. So when they do not have too much interaction outside their domain, the the IOPS or the networking that would happen between these services would be limited. So again, you can reduce the performance impact when you use splitting your monolith application into microservices in the form of containers by designing your application very well using this domain driven designing in such a way that whenever a request is coming, your service should be capable of handling most of the requests, and it should not be interacting with too many other services to return back the response. So in this way, if your application is designed pretty well, there would be very less impact on your application. And in some scenarios, you could also increase the performance of your application, because now there would be multiple factors which will be involved, right? Your infrastructure is quite agile, quite robust in nature. You have earlier it was running in an on-premise application. Now you are running it on a cloud-based architecture, right? You can scale out. So if your service is seeing more of traffic, you can scale out your service in such a way that if more traffic is coming in, immediately new service will be provisioned, which should be capable of handling that traffic. Then the other question that we have is, can two microservices use same databases? Ideally, no. Microservices should not be sharing the databases. If they at all have to need the database tables, which has to be common between the two. Let's take an example that you have an account service or a user microservice. There are some tables of the users, and in every service, you might need to authorize that from which user the request has come, and according to that you have to respond back according to the type of user or the privileges the user has. So in that case, what you can do is you can replicate the user table in all the databases. So let's say you have an inventory service, you have a order service. In both the services, you can have user table, and you can always refresh this user table or sync this user table with the master table in user microservice using asynchronous mechanisms like queues. There is another question from Komal. Can you please share the links page, please, or present it on your screen? Sure. I think this is the end of the session, and I don't see many questions here. So I'm just presenting my screen again with the links so that it is visible to you. Here we comes to the end of the session. Hope the session was helpful in answering few of your questions and helping you understand the concept of microservices and the steps you need to follow if you have to migrate from monolith to microservices. Thank you.